So, what happens when the world's two biggest democracies decide to go toe-to-toe in a trade war? You might think it's going to be about super high-tech stuff like microchips, right? But nope. This fight, it's about wheat and milk. We're talking about the most basic things on your dinner table, and the story behind it goes back way, way back.
So that's the big question, isn't it? Why are these two countries, these supposed strategic partners, locked in such a nasty trade dispute? What is really going on behind all the handshakes we see on the news? Well, let's get into it. And listen, the stakes here are huge. The US has slapped tariffs as high as 50% on a whole bunch of Indian goods. I mean, that's not just a tax. That is an economic wall. It's threatening billions of dollars and who knows how many jobs. So, how on earth did we get here?
Okay, to really get what's going on here, you have to understand the weapon at the heart of it all, the tariff. It sounds like some boring economic term, but its history is actually kind of wild, and it tells you everything you need to know about this standoff. You know, even the word tariff has a fascinating story. It comes from the Arabic word tarafa, which was really just a notification, a simple list of items you had to declare when your ship came into port. But over hundreds of years, that humble little list morphed into one of the most powerful weapons in economic warfare.
And you can literally see that evolution right here. I mean, tariffs started out as just simple road tolls, basically, back in ancient Mesopotamia. But then they became a weapon. In the 1700s, Britain used something called the Calico Act to absolutely crush India's world-famous textile industry. Fast forward to 1930, and America's Smoot-Hawley Act kicks off a global trade war that pretty much threw gasoline on the fire of the Great Depression. Things got so bad that the world finally got together and created groups like the WTO for one main reason: to stop this kind of thing from ever happening again.
In that history, it is everything when it comes to understanding India's side of the story. The country's entire modern approach to trade is shaped by this really painful memory, a lesson they were forced to learn the hard way back in the 1960s.
So, in the 1960s, India was hit by a terrible famine. They had to rely on food aid from the United States to survive. But the wheat they got was described as being fit only for pigs. Can you imagine? It was a moment of complete national humiliation.
And of course, the aid wasn't free. It came with strings attached. The US started using food as a political weapon. During the 1965 war with Pakistan, America actually delayed food shipments to try and pressure India. For India, that was a national trauma. Using a nation's hunger against them, it created this deep, deep vow. Never again. Never again would they depend on another country for something as basic as food.
And you can see the direct result of that trauma right here. It was a complete 180. In just 20 years, India went from being dangerously dependent on the US for almost half its wheat to becoming one of the most protectionist countries on the planet. They built an economic fortress around their country, and especially around their farms.
Okay, so let's fast forward to the present. For decades, things were tense, sure, but mostly stable. That all changed with the Trump administration, which came in with a completely different philosophy on trade. And that new philosophy set off a chain reaction that put India right in the crosshairs.
So, what was driving all this? Well, it was this very specific way of looking at the world. The thinking was that if you're buying more from a country than you're selling to it, what's called a trade deficit, that's a loss. It's like you're losing a game, and it's a problem that has to be fixed, usually with force.
And that worldview started a massive domino effect. First, the US hit China with tariffs. China immediately punched back, and they aimed right for America's weak spot: agriculture. All of a sudden, US farmers lost their #1 customer. It was a full-blown crisis, and Washington had to find a new, massive market for them, and they had to find it fast. Their eyes turned to the one place with 1 billion-plus people who could buy all that food: India. But here's the thing. They ran smack into that historical wall that India had built all those years ago. The US demanded access for its farmers, for its dairy products. But for India, that was, and it still is, completely off the table. It's a red line they just will not cross.
And if you want to know why, you just have to look at the sheer scale of it. This isn't just about economics, it's about people. Nearly half of India's population, we're talking hundreds of millions of people, depend on farming to live. For the government, opening up this sector to foreign competition isn't a simple policy choice. It's something that could throw the lives of a huge chunk of their population into chaos.
So India's no really comes down to these 3 non-negotiable red lines. First up,
Price. Super subsidized American farm products would just completely steamroll local Indian farmers. Second, there's a huge fear of GMOs and the idea of losing control over their own seeds. And third, there are some very, very real cultural and religious issues, especially when it comes to dairy.
And you can see the price problem right here. I mean, look at this. Heavily subsidized American corn is way, way cheaper than the minimum price that India guarantees to its own farmers. If that American corn flooded the market, Indian farmers wouldn't stand a chance. It's just not a fair fight.
And when it comes to dairy, wow, it's just as big of a deal. You have something like 400 million livelihoods tied to this one sector. But it's not just about the money. There's a huge cultural clash too. In the US, cattle feed can contain animal byproducts. In India, where cows are sacred, that practice is just unthinkable. It's a non-starter.
So, all of that brings us to where we are right now, a great standoff. Both sides are completely dug in. They're under massive political pressure back home, and there's almost no room for either of them to compromise. It's a total stalemate.
And here's the scoreboard, basically. You've got the US demanding full market access, and they're using those heavy tariffs as a club to get it. On the other side, you have India refusing to budge on its farmers, protecting them at all costs. And the result? A free trade deal is completely dead in the water, and billions of dollars in Indian exports are just hanging in the balance. And this whole thing just brings us full circle, right back to that one huge question. India's painful history taught them that being dependent on another country is a massive vulnerability. And in today's world, with all the sanctions and trade wars, maybe that lesson is more important than ever. Is being self-sufficient the only real security a nation can have? That's the question at the very heart of this entire standoff.